February '63. He's got all my contact addresses, probably from the FBI, and he's going around visiting these people. Lester Logue in Dallas, and Frank Barthez in New Orleans, and all these other people.
You get what? I don't think you got one of these.
I brought my own copy.
Which one are you going to look at first? That little one? No, you don't have this one. You see that question there?
What is Richard Nagel thing?
Yeah.
Leopoldo picked his war name from Leopoldo is Bernie de Torres.
So he didn't get it from a Mexican restaurant?
No, and they didn't use the name Leopoldo either.
Okay.
Wait a second. Wait a
Used
second.
the name Bernardo. They didn't want her telling the truth. Even today, the Herald covers up when her brother goes to prison as the crooked city manager of Miami. They say her mother was in prison because she created Operation Peter Pan. Bullshit. She was in prison because she was on a plot to kill Fidel with Reynal Gonzalez and Tony Veciana and company. That's why she went to prison with her old man, Amador. And then they don't mention Sylvia, who lives here in Miami. The Warren Commission found she met with Oswald. Yeah. Why don't they want to talk about that shit? It's strange. Yeah. Bernardo de Torres gave his proper name, Bernardo, and Angelo gave his proper name, Angelo. Okay. They were there, and Sukas knew they were there.
Well, that's, we know Sukas, okay. But this question here, Richard Nagel, who, you know, that book that Dick Russell wrote, he said that Leopoldo picked the war name from a Mexican restaurant. Is that true? That's bullshit.
The name
Okay.
Leopoldo wasn't even used.
All right. Fine. All right. Now, what about this next one here, Robert Morris?
No, because my uncle sent me to the president of Dr. Ross Dog Food in L.A., D.B. Lewis, eccentric multimillionaire friend of H.L. Hunt and Robert Morris. So I went to see Morris. Morris said stay away from Walker, but turned me on to Lester Logue and a number of other people. Then I never dealt with Morris after that.
Finish with that, Dave?
What about that Robert Morris question there?
Oh. He didn't like Walker and told me to stay away from him.
I don't know. Did he know General Charles Willoughby? Was that
He knew Willoughby.
who? Robert Morris did?
Yeah.
Okay.
The joyment, the Prussian.
That's okay. What's the next one?
Paul's relationship with Morris, zip. Morris wouldn't see him. He went to see Lester Logue. Logue believed his bullshit story.
But he knew of Hall, right?
No.
He didn't know of.
Paul showed up on his own,
Oh.
working for the FBI, trying to hit my contact.
All right. Now, what about this Laureano Batista thing there? The last question on that page.
There was no camp.
What do you know about the right wing training camp? It was near Laureano Batista and Angel Vega's CDC camp in
There
Louisiana.
was no camp.
No camp. That ends that.
We
If
were
there's no
down,
camp,
we were
you
down
can't
there
be
with
near
Larry
there.
Laborde in '62 to set up a camp, and then Mike McClaney and his brother and Gito DeValle and those people, they suckered Lockley. Okay, this is right after I picked up the weapons that are going to be used on what they're later going to be used on JFK in Miami. I brought those weapons from Lockley and from Collinsville, Illinois. Through FBI snitches, they got Lockley in touch with McClaney's guy Papucho, Espinosa, Koch, the survivors of the sailboat that turned out to be the terrorists of fucking, you can't name what these people do. Them guys that survived, the paratroopers that survived that sailboat after the Pale Pigs, total went psycho. Been the top terrorists ever since. And they lured them to McClaney's property in Macomb, Louisiana. And McClaney then heard who the hell Lockley was, and I warned Lockley, stay away from these people. You know, they want to drop plane bombs on refineries and all that kind of work, which Gito DeValle was supposedly doing. You know, who knows who he was working for. But Lockley brought down the empty 100-pound blue babies. And McClaney's brother went and bought, stupidly, you know, dynamite on the open market. But Lockley wouldn't use dynamite in the bombs anyway. It was all a set-up deal to make a bust. There was no training camp.
All right, what about the other set there? Read the question first so we all know what it is.
It said, do you still believe that Enrique Molina Rivera was a Castro agent?
Yeah.
And what happened?
All you had to do was ask him, he'd tell you.
And what happened?
He would talk in front of anti-Castro exiles, former rebels themselves, about how good Raul was and Fidel was an asshole. Which almost got him killed.
What happened?
He disappeared on the flight with Rourke. Ended up being seen in Havana a couple months later.
According to Paulino Sierra, he was visited by Bert Mold and John Lechner in February-March '63. They claimed they were representing Jake Lansky. They were associated with the American Committee to Free Cuba, Americans for a Free Cuba.
We didn't deal with Sierra until the second trip down from Chicago. Sturgis was running around, Artemio was running around, Somoza was coming up from Nicaragua, and Sierra was saying, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And I think we checked with Rebozo and said Paulino Sierra's full of shit, you know, and that's when we backed away from Sierra.
After Hall took Jerry Hemming's rifle out of hock, he supposedly took it to Lester Loeb's along with other weapons that he picked up at Clint Wheat's. Hall said that he brought it to Dr. Crockett's house in Miami. Was he telling the truth?
No, what happened is they left it when they got busted. It was left at Lester Loeb's house, okay? Then Loeb wanted them to get it off his property up in Northwood, and Hall then flew. Seymour went to Arizona. Hall flew to Miami, bullshitting with that other Castro agent asshole. Then he made arrangements for somebody to drive, I think through Wally Welch, the trailer to Miami, and just in case he wasn't there, he gave the address for Dr. Fred Crockett, the dentist, over in Bayside. What is that, north of 36th Street in Biscayne?
Oh, Crockett's office? No, that
No,
was
the house.
Yeah. Well, okay.
What's that little walled-in community there, just north of 36th Street on Biscayne?
No, actually, he lived in the southwest section.
No, yeah, this is where he's living. I went up there and checked the trailer and wrote down the license plate number of the trailer when I got the weapon back from him. Hall had parked it there, even while he was screwing around with Larry Howard and all them guys and trying to no-name key thing. He never went and picked the stuff up at Crockett's place, which were all drug samples and shit like that from doctors' offices, and the only weapon that was on the trailer was the Johnson. And I got the Johnson back from Crockett at that time. But he'd had somebody drop the trailer, mostly with boxes of pharmaceutical samples, at Crockett's house in North Bay. It's not North.
I know what you're talking about. It's across from Channel 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where his house was. And when I got word that Crockett might know something from Wally Welch in Dallas, I went over to Crockett and raised hell, and he said, oh, the guy dropped it here, and here it is. And I went out, yeah. And I happened to mention the rifle. Oh, I took that out of there, and he had it in his bedroom. And I copied the license.
That was right off
down.
Biscayne, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
North of
okay,
the
I know what you're
FBI
talking about.
headquarters.
Yeah, right, we went over there.
Yeah.
I remember that, yeah.
What can you tell about the relationship between Wheat and Colonel Gale?
This is in 68 and 69. Colonel Gale wasn't shit back in 63. He didn't have anything going. They're confusing the time, okay? Wheat was around Guy Gabaldon. They made a movie about him, raised by Japanese, and he talked the Japanese into surrendering a Saipan and all that shit. Jeff Hunter played him, I think. But Guy Gabaldon was playing like he was going to do a Bay of Pigs thing, got his picture in the paper and all that. And Larry Howard had been assigned by then ATTU. Before it was ATF, it was part of IRS, and it was called the Alcohol Tobacco Tax Unit. And that's who Larry Howard was working for. And they put him on Guy Gabaldon and sent him out to eyeball us.
Wheat disappeared just before Garrison could subpoena him supposedly on orders from headquarters.
I don't know where they get this information from. If they got that kind of information, why are they asking questions? It's a horseshit question because they're basing it on a supposition or fantasy land. Like that guy, that letter I just gave you, fantasy land shit, book readers.
These are questions from the UK, from our favorite researcher over there. In Lauren Hall, 63, who recruited Lauren Hall, and who was he working for in the Sylvia audio business?
He wasn't. My dad died first week of January '63. I had to get permission of the court because we'd been busted 3 weeks before in some Borough K at a CIA safe house. And because we're on ROR bond, I had to get permit to fly out. Went to California. I couldn't even find the family house. They had moved, you know. So I had to go to the TV shop and get the address. And the second day there, my little brother Douglas, somebody's knocking at the door, and I'm in shaving or whatever. And he says, there's a friend of yours from Cuba, American guy. So I asked him if his name is Loran Hall. Yeah, that's him, Loran Hall. Well, he wasn't a friend of mine. The only time I'd seen him in Cuba, he was behind bars. He was in a cell next to Santo Traficante, along with Leslie Bradley and a bunch of other people. They got busted on a CIA scheme to invade Nicaragua. Loran Hall and Traficante pissed in their pants because they thought my crew had come to do the execution on them, because that's what Enrique Molina Rivera, who was the captain in charge of Triscornia, the nut house, told Traficante and Loran Hall and Leslie Bradley that the American that does the mobile executions is here, so get your shit together. And they pissed in their pants. And I didn't figure out what was going on until this lieutenant told me. He said, they're pulling a joke on these clowns. I said, well, who the fuck are they? Englishman, American, a Guinea, who the fuck are they? You know, we ain't here to shoot nobody. And they kind of relaxed then. They were greatest of friends. Well, when Traficante heard that the guy that's in the newspaper picture with the parachutes and all this shit after the Bay of Pigs is this the same guy that was at Triscornia, who, so they had me confused with Herman Marx, that I was doing the executions at La Cabana. So Traficante thought that's who I was when he was locked up in Cuba. You know? So he set up a meeting for me and Davey to go to Fontainebleau Boom Boom Room so somebody could eyeball us. Again, Cano was there, Traficante was there, Charlie the Blade Turing was there, Norman Rothman was there. Davey recognized him sitting over at the table. But we weren't supposed to meet with these guys. And I had to wear my camis and my bush hat because that's how I had appeared in worldwide press. And he wanted to see if I was the same guy. Why? Because they had a job for me. You know? That's why they wanted to see if I was the same guy, because they had something for me to do. Kill Castro, which is a euphemism for taking out fucking JFK even in '61.
What relationship did Alexander Rourke have with Captain Enrique Molina Rivera?
He took him in because Enrique Molina Rivera, as an Air Force captain in the Rebel Air Force, had connections in Cuba that could accomplish their goals. And their goal was to insert people in Cuba for an attempt on Fidel.
What was the name of the female reporter who worked for the Pasadena Star-Tribune?
She's the one that sent Hall to my front door.
You know her name?
I forget it. Roberta something.
So,
She's the one who interviewed my father right after we got busted, so it was fresh. And she was the only one that had the address other than the FBI. But that's the name Hall mentioned, that he'd called up this broad at the Pasadena Star and and got my address, which I checked with her, and she wouldn't, either way on the thing. But I figured, here's the guy they're trying to put on us, yeah. And our thing, like with Steve Wilson and the rest of them, was to feed them information and humor them before they put somebody nasty on us. Because almost everybody that signed up was a snitch. Steve Wilson came from Vincent Hannard. All this shit's been declassified lately. Vincent Hannard, who was a FARA agent for a foreign government for Papa Doc, Trujillo, Somoza, Batista, the whole thing. Private detective, you know. He had a entourage, Secret Service type cars and bodyguards and all that shit. And he was busy spying on Sturgis and then spying. Davey was with Sturgis before he even come out of Cuba. Davey worked with Anselmo Allegro, who was the president of the Cuban Senate that took over after Batista fled. And his son was my business partner in Parabellum. But Davey and Bobby Willis and all them people were in Sturgis's crew in 1960, long before the big.
Have you ever heard of Joseph Danner? No. Have you had any contact with Sam Gilbert, friend of General Walker, who lived 2 doors away? Gilbert was a former military intelligence officer and buddy of Jack Ruby. Maybe he had a different...
We don't know. We're meeting people that don't give their names or give phony names.
He also held...
Well, our last dealing with Walker was we sat till 5 o'clock in the goddamn morning with the blinds open right after he'd been shot at. All fucking night talking to this wacko. And he's got the blinds open. And you can see the bullet hole in the goddamn window. So that's about the time that was 5th of July, 1963. We flew out there for the 4th of July. That's the last time we dealt with him. Then came Ole Miss.
Do you know a William B. Miller of Houston, Texas?
I don't think so.
In Miami on November 18th, the hit was supposed to go down. Would Perez know about this, or the Santana brothers?
No.
No.
That was just an excuse to get us there. Number one, the older Santana brother, the younger brother is in a photograph in a book. We found it, identified it. The older brother was a double agent, okay? During the missile crisis, some information had to come out. The 30th of November wanted us to go down there and snatch out Hiram Gonzalez and the chief speleologist for the island of Cuba, the cave expert, okay? And we're supposed to bring him out during the missile crisis on a fast boat, you know. And Hiram got out later on. This guy got out later on. But they had one other guy there. I forget what the hell his background was, but he'd worked with Nunez Jimenez, who ran INRA, who now became the top speleologist and all that shit when this guy took sanctuary in the Uruguayan embassy. But what was it? We had data from the cave guy, this other guy, who really had connection with a Cuban that was dealing with the Soviet artillery people who run the rockets and shit. Anyway, Santana came out with stuff sewn in his clothes. He didn't even know he had it. And the younger brother brought some shit out. Santana was a double agent. He was given instructions, you know, that the Oxford would be coming by such and such a night, come out on a boat. They said, what code should he get? Well, the dumbest fucking code in the world. Dot it, did it, dot it. CIA, or did dot. CIA, and they picked him up. Put him in Navy jeans and a pea coat with USX Oxford stenciled on the back. Dropped
That was Oxford?
Oxford, AGR, like the sister ship to the Pueblo. an AGR, intelligence ship. They dropped him at Boca, or they dropped him to a Coast Guard boat, brought him in. And Diosdado had instructions to take him straight to No Name Key, which they did. And they were debriefed in about 10 minutes. Didn't know shit from Shinola. Stuff was recovered and sent off for some people to analyze. There was confirmation that the nukes came in first. Because part of the information was from two of my paracaidistas down on Cayo Largo, where they were finishing up the airstrip. That's where the sub came in, and they come sneaking up, and there's a cable and a little pontoon delivering some shit to Key Largo, put on a boat, and taken up to Guanabacoa. Those were the nukes. And they were put into a storage facility in Bejucal, which now the Russians admit is what happened.
These were the tactical moves
These are the Aleutian Beagle nukes, 17 KTs.
that they were prepared to use.
Oh yeah, they were in first. Once they had them in, they knew they could do anything else. See, what most people don't realize is all the pictures you see that they show at the UN and Dino Brugioni brags about and the low-level stuff, all those sites, San Cristobal 1 and 2, Remedios and all that, they're all decoys. They're fucking rubber decoys. How do you have 1,700-gallon tanks on tracks when there's no gravel and it's solid fucking mud that time of year? Why are they putting them all out in the open? Because the Cubans, including Che, demanded that they put the shit out in the open so that there would be a détente. But they had already put the real stuff in the caves. Once they had the warheads in, they had it made. Then they brought in the LM-12s, which are the Scuds. They called them Golems. And they were at Banes. They were taken to Banes. And these were the ones that General Grikov said that if the invasion came, he was taking the fleet out with these. He had 42 of them. And they were Hiroshima nukes. And of course McNamara discovered in that meeting down in Havana that if they had launched that invasion, it would have been Armageddon. Because the Ocean Station November relay ship had a fire on board, so Grikov was given autonomous authority to launch. And he told McNamara to his face, first fucking boat on the horizon that's going to nuke the fuck out of you and everybody in Florida and Georgia and north. It was that close. We had commentary. See, we're the ones that flew up to see the governor twice. The files they declassified on Rakusin. We're trying to get some more declassification on Rakusin. On Sidney Hillman. Somebody's writing a book on Hillman right now.
All right.
He turns up a name base because my ex-agent in the Giancana book mentioned Hillman with some connection with Joe Kennedy and that kind of total horseshit. Sidney Hillman came down with the first Secretary of Defense when they created the Defense Department just at the end of the war. Truman named this guy. Okay. Hillman was a buddy of Truman because he had the garment workers and he took them in 42 for Truman. That's how Truman became vice president. So, and Hillman was the guy so close that did the Israeli thing too. But Cord, I think it was the first Secretary of Defense, showed up on Davy's doorstep in the summer, July of '62. We went to the governor and brought in the Adjutant General,
Who was the governor at that time?
Ferris Bryant. He won't talk to this day because he thinks me and Davy were CIA and that it's all classified. He learned so much because he took his Air Force Air Guard adjutant and Bob McMillan, who later let me use his two-star car driving to Fort Benning and all that shit. McMillan sitting there soaking up that Roger Hillsman wrote his book To Make a Nation or something. Talks about the Cuban Labor Organization, that's Fontela, FRDC, a private intelligence organization that's coming out with accurate information, you know. But McMillan and the Air Guard adjutant, Air Guard went to see Powers and Curtis LeMay. He came back scared shitless, and he told the governor, these guys are crazy. They know something's going on, but they want it to come to a head, and then they're going to resolve the question. Yeah. And McMillan got pissed off. The government didn't know a Shinola. But when some information was taken to Harry Truman in Independence, Missouri, and some to Gettysburg Farm, then they called Ferris Bryant up to Washington. A year later, a little over a year later, LBJ made him the Director of Civil Defense for the whole United States. I mean, he had top security clearance. He knew everything that was going on. Yeah, because the governor's guy said Castro's pilot was overheard drunk saying, "We got the big ones," and that's Raoul's pilot right there. But he wasn't drunk. He was telling the governor, you know, these people have got some shit going down there. And there's 4 different elements. Okay, number 1 element, extreme right wing, says you guys prolonged the Cold War. If you kept your mouth shut, it had been a détente. Nuclear parity. Okay? Then the other right-wing extremists say, if you'd kept your mouth shut, we'd have taken it all out at once. Of course, they're saying before they learned that the nukes were there.
Curtis LeMay's comment to Kennedy was, blockade would be worse than the appeasement of Munich.
4 B-52 flights went into Soviet territory during the Missile Crisis. Inside sovereign, not fail-safe, inside sovereign territory against the orders of Kennedy. That guy was a fucking psycho.
Right.
Others say if we had given the information straight to the White House, tried to do it through Rebozo, he was living up there with Bobby Kennedy. If we'd given the information that the nukes were in there first, it'd all been a different story. All these people talking out their ass. The governor was told what he needed to be told, and things were done. Yeah. But we had one of the De La Guardia brothers, he got executed with Arnaldo Ochoa. The twins, perfect English, travel anywhere they wanted to, came out before the missile crisis. And one other very prominent figure met with in Andros at what later became Autec, Congo Town one time, and at Fresh Creek the other. And that personality said, we got it. But you know what kind of position I'm in? I'd seen my files. I'm a suspected fucking Castro agent. I'm a suspected KGB agent. I'm now meeting with one of the top Cuban fucking leaders in the Bahamas during the missile crisis. Who do you tell this shit to? Yeah. And why am I going to serve? This guy wants me to tell Washington. First, just before the Bay of Pigs, when I was working with Gentry, one of these agents said, why don't you come on back to Havana, we're expecting some shit real bad. I still had me fucking covered. They wanted me back in Havana. Then, after the Bay of Pigs, some of their people came through my house, yeah, from the Mexico route. Some of them worked for the company, some of them had been my people. And they did an assessment that we weren't pro-CIA. We were against assassinating Fidel. We were involved in recon, not fucking raids heating up the North Coast. That you can't do anything. The Bay of Pigs, one of the Bay of Pigs' failures for the underground was they had no reception committees. So shit wasn't dropped to the people. Because I was there during a couple of fucking airdrops. They had no reception committees. They got declassified the letter to Diggeris Fuentes and the 3rd of November letters, and they got all that shit from the archives. And that's what we're telling them. You know, you can't do anything in Cuba until you know what's going on. So we barely had anything in Cuba to know what was going on, which served the purpose of the missile crisis. That's why Davey thinks that we were in such high esteem because of what we did in the missile crisis. So one of the people had assets on the fucking island. The one they claim he got killed over in South Beach in a love triangle about a year ago. You know, was a DEA snitch at one time working for Coney. He was our guy. Worked for Phone Taylor. They had nobody. He had no assets on the island. We're the ones that came out with the stuff. Yeah. When Kennedy on September 7th said on TV there ain't no fucking missiles Okay? The next goddamn day, the guy's calling me over to fucking Bahamas. What the fuck is going on? The shit's right out where they can see it. But I'm telling them, I'm carrying messages from the enemy. You know, you want this done. Now, caution tells me that when the enemy wants something done, it's a no-no to fucking do it. Yeah? Well, this particular party was interested in some data on how Camilo Cienfuegos disappeared. And he was real strong suspecting Raul. And I stood on a runway that has trees that grow right up to the edge of the thing, and there's a where the passengers get off, but there's no office or nothing there, and there's a telephone. You call for a cab to the town, Congo town. And the pilot that flew him in an INRA plane, later the famous Sturgis and Ray, what's his name, for AP or something, did a big story about INRA plane flying to the Bahamas. Yeah. Well, that was 63. This is 62. And an AN-2, which is a biplane they use for crop dusting, skydiving and shit, painted yellow, is what brought the party to Congo town. And the pilot was one of the guys that I was very close to, Cuban, and a ranking guy. You know? And he hung back, you know, but he was on the 16-day rescue that we flew on Camilo. And Sordi Marin was the guy that decided at San Jose del Lago that we shut the thing down, that he determined who shot Camilo Cienfuegos down. So this personality is saying, do you think Lieutenant Bautza, with his Sea Fury, parked in a sugarcane field, waiting for Davy to come and firebomb the fucking place, got airborne and assassinated Cienfuegos? And I told this guy, more than likely, he saw a pirate aircraft, a twin-engine pirate aircraft, about to burn a sugarcane field, got airborne, shot it down, and later found out it was Camilo. Because this guy did some stunts of shit over Havana a few months later, went into the drink in his Sea Fury. His twin brother tried to jump out of a helicopter in grief. I told the guy that Bautza intentionally, no, the cover-up later on, they got Cristina Naranjo and Baton, and those people killed him. But that Bautza was under orders to kill Camilo. First, there's no communication at the sugarcane field. You know, they'd have to flown somebody out there. And how would they know the route? It's only a certain time in the afternoon. You can't come up the middle of the island. You got to go out along the beach because of the thunderstorm buildup. These guys don't like to fly through thunderstorms. So they wouldn't know he was going to take the northern route. And no other planes were around that could have followed him. So I told this guy, more than likely Raul didn't order it, even though Bautza was one of Raul's guys, and the thing was a fucking accident. And he still had his doubts. But he's the guy that went to Moscow with Raul. And he's the guy that insisted that the United States be informed that there's a treaty with the Soviet Union and that missiles are being put in, defenses are being put in early 62. And the Russians are going to go along with it.
Is that, you got any more from Malcolm?
Yeah.
Well,
Your contacts with Oswald were in '59 at the Cuban consulate in East Los Angeles and at Max 9 LTA.
Monterey Park.
And at Max 9 LTA station Blimp Base, Santa Ana. Later, when you went to Cuba in March or April 1960, Tapanez, the 26th of July LA coordinator, told you that Oswald came by. Was that correct? The fact that Oswald came by?
Tapanez was in the palace. In fact, Davey, when did you leave the palace? 59.
I don't know, but it was about 4 or 5 days after I took a Rutia into Cuba.
Okay. There was a new president.
So was it early 60?
No, this would be
59.
March, because I was still at San Antonio with a parachute regiment, and he showed up out there too. I went into the palace. It had to be in the middle of March, 59.
Did you know this 5 years ago?
Yeah. If
You told me
if you
you
don't
didn't-
ask it, and people interrupt, and they got their own fucking agenda.
No,
of
I
asking
asked you
questions.
that, you told me this whole thing, and you said you didn't know whether that was him or not.
I never saw him. It's Top and S telling me,
So
your
you don't know
buddy.
that it was him?
No, Top and S believed that it was him.
Oh, okay.
And I worried, here's a guy that's going to cause me problems. I figured he was a snitch. Here's a guy that if they get, like they took Morgan's citizenship, you know, and they tried to take Sturgis' citizenship. And I figured they're going to try and take mine, you know. But they got to have a payroll or see me in uniform, what have you. I wasn't anxious to be seen in uniform. Okay, when Top and I said he had been by the palace, get the fuck out. I didn't come back for a couple weeks. Stayed out of San Antonio. He showed somebody at San Antonio, the officer, they come by and said, there's a friend of yours from California, which could be anybody, because I invited enough people to come
We're
down.
talking about San Diego, San Antonio where?
De Los Baños in Cuba.
Okay, De Los Baños.
Okay.
Right.
And he's over by the control tower. I figured, what the fuck? It's a restricted area. It's where our jets are parked and all that shit. The guy's over by the operations office. And the guy that sent the word to the OD is Juan Medina, who last was a security guard at the 27th Avenue Railroad Station where Milian worked before he got his legs blown off.
Yeah.
Medina was the operations officer,
WQBA?
whatever it was. On 27th Avenue and the trail, the 5 points. Medina is the guy that sent the word to the OD. I went to operations. Medina says over there by the parking lot, and there's one guy sitting there, and his name is Johnny Monaco, and he's 16 years old. And 10 years later, I find out his dad is the mob chief for Key West. But only one guy. No, I says, where's your buddy? Oh, he took off walking. What's his name? Yeah. I don't know what name he gave me. I wasn't paying attention. I didn't remember Oswald's name. All I knew was that he was at the consulate. He's a snitch. Yeah. Next I know, he's showing up in Havana, San Antonio. Next time is when we're getting our TV thing. Ashman sets up a press conference at the, what's that inn that we stayed at after we got out of Key West jail? Congress Airport
Congress
Inn.
Airport Inn, yeah.
And here's this guy talking to Steve Wilson and Larry Howard, and Larry Howard's like nodding his head, you know. And I'm raising hell with a TV guy in Ashman about low profile and shit like that. We're not
Charles
really-
Ashman?
Yeah, he was our lawyer.
Okay.
He said-
But let's back up a minute here. You got me confused. What were you saying? You saying Lee Harvey Oswald showed up at that radio station where Milian got blown up?
No.
No.
The guy that can verify
Uh-huh.
an American coming to visit me,
Uh-huh.
ended up 2 Americans, is Juan Medina, Captain, Rebel Air Force.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
The last location, he was employed as a security guard by the radio station, 27th Avenue and 8th Street, 20
Okay.
years ago.
Yeah, that was,
Medina's in the declassified shit.
what's his name? That was WQBA that was located in that building.
The bank building.
Yeah,
Whatever it is,
yeah.
It says here, you next saw Oswald Lake Ponchar train in a hangar near the lake in May or June '62. How can you be sure about this date?
Can be sure about the date.
May or June '62?
June 62.
June
We were out there with Larry Laborde. We'd got in a Civil Air Patrol plane, flew out over Covington in this Catholic seminary, right, Dan?
Mm-hmm. Was he the pilot who was ex-Civil Air Patrol, who was close to Oswald?
I don't know.
It's
I don't remember the his name was Crowley or Rowley or
It said-
something.
Well, it said that you were flying out of this proposed training camp, and the pilot was an ex-CAP close to Oswald. Who was it?
I don't know that he was close.
No.
He knew the guy standing in the hangar that set off the little bell ringing in my head.
Does the name Harry Vance mean anything to you? There was another sighting of Oswald by Jimmy Monaco at the San Antonio Air Base. Do you remember the date of this?
Who's Jimmy Monaco?
Johnny Monaco.
He made up that steak. Monaco steak?
Del Monaco.
How many more questions you got there on that?
Just about 4.
4 more?
Then you saw Oswald at the Congress Airport Inn in Miami on December 6th, 62. Was this guy identical to the guy shot by Ruby in Dallas?
I didn't look at him that close. All I knew is the snitch alarm went off. I sent Steve Wilson over to Larry Howard to shut his mouth. Okay. Later, Larry Howard and when did we go to California on your case in San Diego? 81?
Something like
Yeah. Larry Howard asked me when we were driving down the freeway, remember that thing when we got out of Key West and there was a hassle with you and Steve Wilson and Chuck Ashman and you sent Steve Wilson over to tell me to shut my mouth. This guy wanted to join us, you know. That was Oswald, wasn't it? Yeah.
You believe that?
Well, 20 years later, you know, this had chewed at him for 20 years. He wasn't sure. Yeah? Because he wouldn't know. Here's Garrison trying to put him, you know, a few years earlier, extradite him, which he went voluntarily to New Orleans, hooking him up with this phony Loran Hall, Bill Seymour, meeting Sylvia Odio bullshit. Yeah? Well, they had to move pretty fast to cover that Sylvia Odio deal. And where were they going to go? They go to one of their guys, Hall. Yeah?
Yeah, exactly.
And Seymour looks like Oswald. Bullshit. Now, here's a girl that speaks perfect Spanish. Okay, Sylvia Odio, I knew her in Cuba. Okay, good looking broad. She drove me cross country to pick up some of my parachutes. Okay, they knew I knew her. The government knew I knew her. Also, I knew Sylvia Tirado de Duran at the Cuban embassy in Mexico City. When I was debriefed by the CIA, all those names came out. Strange they should be turning up later on. Yeah? So like Sylvia, she was part of an operation. And it had to do with Rourke, Sturgis, all them people. And I didn't know Morales was coming in on the deal. But it was a thing that was worked out where somebody would switch places on a plane going to Cuba at Merida, Mexico. Because they didn't have a very good manifest system, which I briefed people in the Pentagon and State Department on February of that year, 63.
Something they could use.
Did you meet a Colonel Castor in Dallas?
No.
How about a young guy called Kincaid at Wally Welch's place during 62?
Do you, hey, remember Wally Welch, Gloria? We stayed there and her little nubile 16-year-old daughter, and we slept overnight there.
Oh, yeah.
Well, what do you remember of Wally Welch, who was a snitch for Sturgis and runs his mouth, and anybody in that circle? This was a contact, you know, that we made, and we seemingly needed a place to stay. You know. And I'd gotten Wally Welch's name from Watley, who had stolen, or Bobby Willis had stolen Sturgis's telephone book. Can I take a leak?
Of course. Okay,
We're rolling.
do you know who went, besides Sturgis, who went to Dallas prior to the assassination?
In the caravan, Diaz Lands, Marcos and Pedro Diaz Lands, Sturgis, the Broad, Maria Lorenz, wasn't Novo Brothers. Sukas put that in. Sukas put me and Novo Brothers in the caravan. Forget who else went. But I'd warned Felipe Vidal to stay away. Sturgis was circulating around talking about going to Dallas. We figured he was going to some of our oil contacts with some big story. And they left the next day after that airport detail. Felipe went too, but he went separately. He went with Esterline.
Do you know anything about a Bill Duff or Andre Angeles, a.k.a. Don Moon? No? Last question from the UK. Can you explain the significance in regard to the timing of the receipt by Oswald of his MOS?
radar?
Well, when you go to radar school, whether it's at Olathe, Kansas, Ground Controlled Approach, or Ground Controlled Intercept, GCI, Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, Mississippi, you still have a basic MOS, which is 6700, until you get to your first duty station. There, when you're certified by that facility, radar, control tower, or whatever, then your service record book is an entry for your full MOS. I had 6711, 6715, 6931 Lincoln instrument flight instructor, and GCI the same as him, 6741. And these are additional MOSs. See, in the Marine Corps, we have TDY and TAD. In the Army, they have TDY, temporary duty. Temporary additional duty is because you're going into one of your other MOSs. So you're sent somewhere to help out. It happens all the time. But temporary duty, your pay records don't follow. It's usually less than a month. That's why Oswald going to DC would have been TDY, not TAD, because he didn't have an additional MOS. He didn't have his primary MOS. Primary MOS is 6741 GCI operator, which he wouldn't have received until he went to MAX 9, was checked out in the bubble and certified by the commanding officer as a operator.
Did you have Morse code?
Yeah, everybody has it.
What's CIA again?
It's did da.
Where's Gordon with all of this question? Can you tell us anything from a personal basis of David Ferry? Did you meet David Ferry?
He was with Laborde one time. It's either at the hangar or one of these other places. One of these guys on the periphery. Not somebody you talk to. You see them standing around. You don't ask names. You don't do introductions. They're going to give you a name. It's a phony name anyway. You know, it's the name of the business. When somebody comes in, they're shaking your hands and taking you around to visit their daycare center. You know they're not in the business. They're not in the business.
What can you tell us about the CRC in New Orleans?
Practically non-existent.
Practically?
Yeah. They operated in New Orleans for one purpose. Okay, Burke was the 00 domestic contact service guy. Okay, Mike Burke. He's the guy that Jack Lawrence complained to about the sailboat, the LCM Riker. We got Fontail's crew to bring it down from New Orleans and all that. Later, we had a federal lawsuit over crewmen's wages and shit with Captain Milton and all that. Burke wrote a lengthy memo, I've got a copy of it, to headquarters, saying, hey, if this is part of your operation, guys, we can pay it off and take care of it. And Esterline writes in a memo, shut that motherfucker up. He's a 00 fucking domestic contact guy. He's not a station chief. What the fuck is he doing in plain language, not using cryptonyms? He's supposed to say Kubark for fucking CIA and JM Flog for whoever it is. Here he has open fucking memorandum on U.S. government memorandum paper to the DCI, rather say DDP, Bissell. No, Bissell then Helms. And they're saying at headquarters, shut this motherfucker up. You know, what the fuck is he talking about? We don't work through him on operational shit. But Laborde had caused a stink, so we got all the Laborde stuff declassified.
Oh, you did?
We got it all, yeah. Especially that article Bob Brown did, you know, Cuban exiles have learned to hate the CIA and all that. It created quite a storm. A lot of memorandums on that stuff. But they use New Orleans because that's where the cables end from Latin America. They don't end in Miami. That's where the cables are. That's where they tap the cables. So that's where the base or station has to be. Then when they came up with this plan with Nino Diaz, Okay, some of the frogmen were trained at Algiers Naval Air Station, and Nino Diaz's people were trained there, and that's where they left from when they went to Puerto Rico and then come off the coast of Cuba. So, what is known as Operation 40, there was never an Operation 40. Okay.
Wasn't that the
Later,
40
there's a 40 committee, but even back then they were calling it 40 committee.
Oh, by the way,
This was the
Davey,
green light.
Main base had Operation 40 and the Committee of 40 listed as the same thing in their name base till I
Well, the late 40 committee is long after the Bay of Pigs.
I know it is.
But they called it the 40. See, they had the 24-40 committee and all this kind of bullshit after Pauley and Doolittle commissions and the Correa commissions and all that shit. They had a euphemism for those black operations. What are black operations? You blow up kiddies in the daycare center and you kill fucking people with long hair and dirty noses. That's what the fuck you do for 40 committee. Even Sturgis didn't know what it was and was bragging he was part of Operation 40. There's no Operation 40. New Orleans is the base of where anybody that got back in power in Havana in the victory parade, like Aldo Vera or Tony Cuesta or Artime or any of these former rebels or liberals, they were going to whack them. That's what it's all about. I call that community action project. Yeah.
You're
But
talking
they
about-
weren't going to have any Manuel Reyes or any of these feudalistas without Fidel sitting in the palace in fucking Havana. They were going to whack them. Yeah. When they did the job and their usefulness ended and the victory parade was over, they were going to do like Fidel did with Manoy on Second Front, you know. Put them on the street. Let them have their uniforms and ranks, but no military commands. But since other people think it's better to whack them, they decided to have a major project on that. I mean, can you imagine these former rebels ending up in the palace? Very easily done. And then somebody would say, CIA, you put a lot of money, you put a lot of effort, and you let these motherfuckers take over again? That'd kind of piss some people off.
You done now? Okay, we're gonna get with Davey now and find out how he was approached on this Miami security thing.
He doesn't do anything on film. Never has. Then,
He's been on film all the whole time he's been sitting here.
Yeah, but Oliver hasn't even got any film of it.
I don't know anything. Everybody thinks I'm kidding, that I'm trying to cover up, but I really
He hasn't
don't.
read the first book on this business.
No. You know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the second floor meeting.
He knows more about it than I do. I listen to him, and then I start to remember things.
But he told me that since you came down here, you could verify this whole thing.
Well, that's what he's doing. He's giving it a.
I can verify, but I don't.
If I say something that is incorrect, he's going to correct me.
Or you won't live to tell about it.
Yeah.
Why would he even bring it up? No, he's the big guy on national TV saying, I don't know why somebody wouldn't invite us to protect the fucking president at Miami National Airport. I mean, we're the #1 guys for the job. Right?
Who said that?
He did.
No, not me.
There's nothing scurrilous or conspiratorial about that. To this day, he thinks it was the proper thing and it was a very innocent thing. I'm the one that says it ain't.
I just don't see.
He doesn't see a plot because he never read a fucking book on this
I just don't
business.
see it.
Yeah, he worked
You
in
don't
the
see a what?
movie.
We don't want to know. We don't want to know what he read in the book. We want to know what it is that he actually knows.
He's never researched.
We don't want any research.
Right.
We just want to know what he knows.
That's it. And you got a pure, untainted version here of anything if you can think of the right question. What's the question?
What's the question?
Question. The question is, how did you get over there on the second floor into that meeting? What were the circumstances that led up to it?
I called him.
Cat
He
got
didn't
your
touch
tongue?
it.
Let him remember it.
You can verify.
I'm trying to remember.
But you remember what was up there, right?
The only thing I can remember vaguely is that there were a lot of people that I didn't know and a few people that I did. Mostly Cubans that I knew and gringos and a lot of Cubans that I didn't know. And I just like to just kind of stay back
They did all the
in the
talking.
background and just listen.
What were we there for? A briefing? What was it about? A threat against the president?
Well, basically,
I may remember it all.
basically, the way I recall is that we were approached, and I don't even remember by whom. They wanted us to take some of our people, the ones we trusted the most, go out to the airport when the president came in because there was a possible threat against the life of the president, and they wanted us to mix in the crowd to see if we recognized anybody who might be a potential danger. That's all I really recall.
Then you were you were supposed to be in the crowd
Yeah,
for the entire time Kennedy was there.
right.
Who was at the meeting?
God, I don't know.
Well, who were the Cubans you knew?
Cubans from the various anti-Castro organizations. I can't even recall all their names.
Was Juan Salvat there?
I don't. I wish I'm not trying to be
Yeah, I know,
evasive.
I know.
Believe me, I
The
just
thing is,
don't
he
remember.
knows all the Cuban leaders to remember who was there.
No,
the Cuban leaders.
I just asked him one.
He'd worked with these guys 26th of July, went into Cuba, took arms to Fidel, but he doesn't have total recall. And there is a switch you turn off when something happens that don't smell right.
Now,
After the
you
president
remember
was-
Navarro being there, right?
He could have been.
You never dealt with Navarro.
No, I never did.
But he was there. I think Navarro was there.
I don't know. I can't swear that he was there.
Now, you're supposed to be in the crowd the entire
What if you're a
time
hypnosis
Kennedy was
guy?
there. Do you remember?
What if your hypnosis guy worked on it?
Uh,
With all the problem of created memory.
What?
One of his business partners is a doctor that does hypnosis shit.
what was? How long was Kennedy supposed to be at the airport? Do you remember that?
No, he was going to make a speech of some kind, a short speech, and then he had some other agenda. I don't know what it was.
Okay. Well, you know, when I asked Hemming that question back when you were living over in Little Haiti by Howard Hunt on 6th Street. Anyway,
6th Street.
he was
Come on, no,
surprised that Kennedy had made a speech at the airport. He didn't know that.
Then we got the fuck out of there.
See, now that's what I don't understand. See, there's so many contradictions.
Well, the problem is when you're dealing with something so long ago,
I understand.
you know, memories
Vague.
change.
I don't remember.
They
Stuff
fade.
30 years ago.
I was tempted to go to the hypnosis guy where Watley or somebody said, first it's this crowd, the sun deck is open, all kinds of people could have fucking guns, the Cubans could be up on the sun deck. You know, there's an argument amongst the guys because they had to come unarmed. You know, little Joey's happy as shit because he's got his 45 there. And something was a catalyst, and we're out of here, and I said, not in the government van. So they went in Jim Lewis's car. Said, it didn't smell right to him. And I wasn't going to argue with him because what I saw at the time was this is totally out of fucking control. Maybe I saw the podium, or I saw this, or I saw that. But once he hit the ground and he's moving, and there ain't no cops near him, and there ain't no fucking Secret Service near him, and it's just civilians walking, you know, and I figured, where the fuck is the helicopter?
Where was
Not
it?
them, we're getting the fuck out of it. You know?
That's another question.
But I can't go down and recall completely why the hell we got out of there. Plus, we saw some of the people that had been at the military intelligence briefing. It didn't smell right, but who are we? Who would think on November the 18th? Huh? Well, we would, because some people had talked to us about it before. Had hinted at this and hinted at that. But you figure, there's wackos and there's wackos.
You know, there's one thing I can't figure out is I have not been able to get a picture of the helicopters. Where the hell were they parked?
Marine One.
Now, this was when Kennedy was walking around the front of his airplane, because I have here's the bottom of the steps.
Where's Kennedy?
Where's Kennedy?
Right there.
You've seen these before.
Well, this is well away from the plane.
Now, here's the infamous motorcade that never existed. That's from the helicopter in Miami Beach to the Maricana.
Yeah, to the labor convention.
Look at that. No security dimension,
Nothing.
open car, nothing.
Where is it here? You got a bunch of Dade County sheriff's people. This is well away from the plane. Look at all these sheriff's guys standing.
Here's Secret Service right here. That's William Greer.
Yeah, I know, but this was in
No deal. Where are they here? Where are they here?
Well, I don't know where they are. I don't know what they look like.
Well,
You
they're
point to
supposed they're
who's
supposed
that
to-
guy right there? You already ID'd him once.
What does it look like to me?
Yeah.
Felipe Vidal's brother. Ivan Vidal.
Who are these guys in suits here? Blood glasses.
Cops, local cops.
Now, here's the bottom
None of
of
this was at the foot of the stairway at the time.
No, that's around the front. This was taken from, you know where this was taken from? The same place this one was taken from. Right here. This picture.
We were about to start circulating into this crowd. Where's JFK here?
I don't know. This was taken from the,
This JFK right here.
from the front door of the Air Force One.
Right in there. Okay. See the terminal over here?
Uh-huh.
The distance that had to be covered? We're going over to the speaker station.
Whoever the helicopter.
Yeah. There's a speakers thing here. Probably has left the speakers thing and set it for the helicopter.
What's this rail right here?
Well, the guy you look for is
See,
the guy.
this is the rail that goes up to the front door of Air Force One. Yeah. This is where Stoughton was when he was taking these pictures.
I hear he's coming back towards the plane. He's coming back towards the plane. Headed over to the helicopter that's parked on the other side of Air Force
I wish
One.
they still had
The
this.
thing here
Yeah,
is,
it's good.
where is the warrant officer with the football?
I used to fly out of here. What?
Where's the warrant officer with the football?
I don't know.
Well, he has to be within 20 feet of the president.
Where is he here?
Coming down the ladder. But this is coming back towards Air Force. This is Air Force One ladder. This is coming back after the speech. We're long.
I was just looking
Yeah, this is after the speech.
Yeah. Here's Claude Pepper.
Yeah, I know.
Well, that's so blurry.
What was he, 92 then? You, look at the cop with his gun facing the president.
Yeah.
Here's another one.
Yeah. Where's the Secret Service that faced the crowd?
They were going to the airport, I mean to the helicopter in this picture.
Yeah, where's the Secret Service that faces the crowd?
I have no idea where they
It
were.
ain't there.
Someone asked me where
They
they were.
went around and came down the ladder when I saw this red-headed dude that I'd only seen one time before in the East Wing of the White House.
Wow, Metro
7
Cops.
months before.
You know, there's an awful lot of cameras in this crowd, and I can't get anybody to come forward with their pictures.
You advertised somewhere.
Yeah, I did. That's where I got these colored ones from. See, this is taken from a slide. There's some missing from this set. No, there's a bunch missing.
Pretty fishy to me.
Now, in this one here, Jerry, this one here, you said this is your car here?
I think it is. I think that's Jim Lewis's car. I think that's the family.
63 Chevrolet.
And Powell.
Chevrolet.
This is a nice panorama. This is a Miami Arrow picture.
This plane here had markings of Trujillo, just down the airways.
Which one? This one?
C-46. Memphis Trujillo put out money for the too.
There's plenty of places to whack the
What's his
president.
name? It's got the...
Danny Vasile. Danny Vasile, that is. This guy here, you know who he is? One of these two guys is the head of Cox Newspapers, which is interesting.
Hey,
That he
Gordon,
would be the person.
have you checked the WTVJ footage?
Yeah, I saw it.
How about that Lewis Wolfson thing?
Yeah, that's what I meant. That's WTVJ.
So the helicopter is this picture. It's about 5 o'clock now.
Morning. He came back and flew to Tampa.
Oh, it came right in
Noontime.
after Tampa.
Was it Tampa first?
Yeah.
Well, then he went to San Antonio for a night.
And we went back to Washington.
Back in Washington. San Antonio.
They went back
Well,
to
with what you see here, we discovered we were really not part of the game.
Okay, well, is that it, guys?
Oh, where were you? What were you doing during the actual Bay of Pigs invasion?
In Miami.
Hanging around.
Yeah.
What was
How
the
much of
question?
those sodas there?
That's what he was doing during the actual invasion.
What, you didn't Bay Pigs?
He was just hanging around.
You were just hanging around here.
Yeah.
Why are these people putting him in the Bay of Pigs?
He put him in the Bay of Pigs.
Well, I see it all the time.
I
Did you
brought
see this?
out a Los Angeles Times writer who had just gone through company jump school at Lake Elsinore. And the LA Times had called in March to, there wasn't a Langley then, it was a temporary building on the reflecting pool. How much of the soda is that?
60 cents.
Gordon gets 10% of that.
And They wanted to
I'll tell you,
go.
I can tell you why some people might put him in the Bay of Pigs, because there was a movie of a large fellow walking by, it looks like. That's where some
movie Bay of Pigs?
yeah. Some
I've
film
seen
footage.
the Bay of Pigs.
Oh yeah, they had somebody had some.
You were in the Bay of Pigs movie?
I know there was a Bay of Pigs movie.
Yeah, it's some film footage.
Oh, there's some film
capturing-
footage and there's a big guy. Don't trip over my bloody thing and my camera.
Don't matter.
Would
Just
you
get the
God
drink.
darn it all.
Just get the drink.
And then-
There's your chance to get rid of this whole.
You got a Coke. Any Coke left there?
Before we started,
Tea is good.
before we started taping, there are a lot of people that think that you were in Dallas that day in November, and yet we now know that there was a guy that looked like you called Eric Knabel,
Well, he's got carrying a rifle down the street.
and he was that's the man in the memo we saw earlier that was carrying a rifle earlier in the day, and they just assumed because it was your height and
No, Secret Service assumed, so they wrote a little thing on there, Hemming.
I see. So then one of our researchers said that when you came to the hotel in Dallas, she had to leave because she was so frightened because you were in the hotel. And I said, yeah. But you haven't heard anything more about this Eric Knabel, or where he came from, or where he went afterwards.
I have spent tons of money and time on this business, ruined my fucking family life. Had to associate with death squads and the fucking scum of the earth just to track down little tidbits on people that were around that had been hired, had been paid money, and were part of a team, but there is no goddamn evidence to show which team did it, whether there was a nexus between the teams, which is rarely the case. The only thing that's been proven to our satisfaction is we don't know who the fuck was on the grassy knoll, but there were Germans in the fucking school book depository building. They spoke German. Okay? They were recorded years later, joking about how the place where the nigger jacked his dick and took naps on the 6th floor, he's the one that put the books up there. And he told the fucking truth, that was his chicken that they found there in his fucking coat. And that's where he was when the fucking shooting started. So the first guy they had to get rid of was Jackie's dick nigger. Okay? And they had the two niggers in the window down below. See, what everybody forgets is big holes in the floor. The floor was torn up. Yeah? And you just couldn't be anywhere. You had to be careful where how you walked. Okay? Now, has that ever been in print 30 years ago? No. Did anybody make a reference to it? No. So the only people that would know would be somebody that worked there or had been there.
What
at
makes you
some
think
point
that?
in
What
time.
makes you think there were big holes in
Well,
the
these
floor?
guys speaking in German in a Latin American country, German enclave, part of the rat line, Odessa people running fucking dope out of Marseille and working out of the Vatican Bank, okay? And the place still exists down there south of Santiago de Chile. It's called Dignidad. Okay, they were recorded, and they joked about that nigger over in the corner being blamed as the assassin. They were wrong on that. He wasn't blamed as the assassin. They didn't give a
They
shit.
were wrong about big holes in
Well,
the
the
floor.
first thing is they weren't going to break the rule to never read or inquire into their work. They come out of isolation, do the job, and go back. And they pointedly stay away. I carried some documentation down in '75. And right away, the right people saw this Rolling Stone thing. They saw my name, and there was a big chuckle about this. One thing led to another. What it led to, the funny part, is a Mexican restaurant over in Coral Gables. Fat Ralph trying to keep me and my brother Bob out of the restaurant. Bob Brown's there to get decorated his team for the Guatemalan earthquake, and the Guatemalan consul is there. See, what they don't know is me and Bob are working to assassinate the president of Guatemala, according to the ON files, right? So what are we doing? Sitting down with the consul general of Guatemala, and Brown, he says, "Fuck it," and points me out and says, "There's the granddaddy that put the rescue stuff together." And the consul almost shit. Well, now that you look at declassified files, we were plotting to kill the president of Guatemala and then later the chief of intelligence. Total bullshit story. They were after their own fucking palace assassin. They were using the State Department Secret Service to get to him through us. Because they shot him up. And I brought him out of El Salvador and hid him out in the States. They put him away for a year for buying a revolver right after he bought a $700,000 home in
You want to tell these
Point.
guys his name?
Coking's a Mary. And that's this document here by this lawyer Treener.
Right after that's when all your problems began, as I recall, Jerry.
We had problems before that. My problem.
You had, you weren't indicted by that.
No, that was
That's
yeah.
my problem.
Yeah, for the president of Guatemala was hiding out in Miami Beach during my trial. Yeah. Tried to subpoena him. We weren't trying to kill nobody in Guatemala. We were protecting the guy they were trying to kill because he knew which right-wing presidential assholes killed the American ambassador in '68 and the colonel, the army attaché. Because he was there. And he was a company asset. And we co-opted him. When I first met him, me and Anselmito went to his nylon factory. And Anselmito, he's a pretty good shot. We've been out with the boys, shooting and all that stuff. And first thing they put you out in the bush where you're going to have an encounter with the bad guys. So we go to meet this guy in his factory office, in the meeting room, and the floor he's got a drain.
Sure.
Yeah.
For blood. Columbia do that too. So he's playing with this machine gun he invented with, and Anselmo's picking up on the fact that he's going to have to do a fast draw. Well, that's what this guy does. He always likes to fast draw. Whether it's he kills the principal and then takes out the bodyguard. He has people throw down on these people. Then he gives them a chance to draw because he fancies himself a fast draw. But John Martino called him up. He said, don't do the hit on Gerry or Anselmito. That's from
Is that the
Washington.
guy we went down to the 7 ambassadors, the 4 ambassadors?
Yeah.
And
Koki's in there. Koki's in there.
Koki, yeah, Koki, that,
Palace assassin.
yeah.
And they wanted him dead. They offered Anselmito $30,000. Cheap bastards. This guy's family's worth $81 million. More now.
That's been set up.
So anyway, we tried to get him to testify before the Senate Intelligence Committee. He was already in jail for this firearms violation. Wouldn't let him out on bail. Here he's gone to the school in the States. He's a multi-millionaire and all that shit. But he's Palestinian Syrian. He's a personal friend of Yasser Arafat and Gaddafi and all that people. He travels a lot. But I had the head of the Senate Intelligence Committee, they had some excluded witnesses that week. So I got to the guy through a contact in D.C. We set it up. We had the guy brought up from FCI down there by Tamiami Airport. He ain't sitting down 5 minutes. Ed Shohat, who was in the paper yesterday, comes in the door. This is my client, all this shit. Well, those are mob lawyers. The mob paid, but the company paid the mob to protect this guy through New York lawyers. Snatched him right out of the seat, because this guy was going to start telling some stories. Well, we made arrangements with cops in D.C. to pick up the thing. They got real close to the guy. Then the mob lawyers, here's this guy, Gerry Treener. He sends the House Select Committee on Assassination, 1978, that Zamiri told him that Hemming said he was in the backup team and he was platform. I had never discussed, never came up from Zamiri or me or anybody, any of the Kennedy shit. I may have read it somewhere, but never did we discuss it. The guy's in jail up in D.C., and the cops are really working on some stuff. Then Jack Anderson writes a column about this guy that they're trying to send back to Guatemala, which is going to get him killed. Used to be a CIA asset, has information on the Letelier assassination and the whole thing, which was the principal reason for getting with it. This was 7/7. So the partner to Gerry Treener, who was he? Jack Wasserman, Marcelo's lawyer in New Orleans. So it's Marcelo's lawyer putting the finger on me to the House Select Committee. with a snitch, without even going into the background of who Zamiri is. That's all. That's why the files, they won't declassify a lot of that shit. They want to point the finger, but sometimes they make the mistake of linking somebody in there that because it's classified, they don't know who the guy is, and they make a big mistake when they go. So I told Jeremy Bunn and those people, pull the files on Zamiri, and you'll get into the Letelier thing.
Speaking of this House Assassination Committee thing there, did Gayton ever interview you, Howard? David? Howie?
Never heard of
No?
Never heard of Gayton Fonzie.
You never heard of him?
Never heard of him. The last investigation. Never read a book.
No, but
How about an
no, during
investigation with
the
House
he's-
Select Committee, House Subcommittee assassination. Ever heard of even that?
He sent me a note a couple of days ago. He said he don't think I ever did talk to Howard Davis. If so, only by phone, although I don't remember.
Anybody ever talked to you about the JFK assassination in '64?
wasn't there a question in
Not that I
there?
recall, no.
Didn't Gayton have a question?
No?
Be in
Uh,
64.
Huh?
I'm in
Oh, you might
64.
ask him where he was
The
then.
Warren Commission started in
Where were you?
Yeah, but we're talking about Gayton Fonzie.
Where were you?
Yeah, well, they didn't do it then. Why would they do it now?
Where were you during the
House
House Assassination?
assassination
In Miami.
In Miami.
Well, he couldn't find you,
In the
so he
phone-
didn't even look for
in
it.
the phone book and had the same phone number for the last 35
during the
years.
HES, he said, I don't think that he was in the area.
Were you?
He had a- I'm
Did Sherry
listening.
Sullivan? Did you take her? Did you take
Yeah.
Sherry Sullivan down to his house?
Jan and Sherry went to his
Yeah.
house.
Oh, you were married to a Cuban.
Well, she's dead, she's deceased.
Oh, she is. I'm sorry.
Back in
She sounded real nice on the
Yeah.
telephone. I remember talking to her a couple of times when I was setting that up with Sherry.
Uh-huh.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, she died of breast cancer. That was about 75 or 6.
One thing when you learn the law, you do
When
things
you
that
saw
are
Sherry?
and
No, when my wife died.
When your wife died?
the Sherry was long after.
Sherry
Oh, yeah,
was long
long
after
after
that. Well, there was some woman with an accent that I talked to on the
Well,
Well, that might have been.
Sisters-in-law, daughter,
Yeah, I don't know who that would have been.
Abuela, she was there this
Well,
morning.
but she doesn't speak English.
Yeah.
Could have been one of my daughters.
The one thing you're real keen
You have the
on,
accent?
Oh, no.
Gordon.
No accent at all.
Oh, I didn't.
Gordon,
Oh.
when you know the law, one thing you're really keen on, okay? I was indicted for sitting in a bar drinking half a glass of beer with Benton Thomas, who had been, Lake Tanganyika and Tanzania, Lake Albert and all that CIA Congo stuff. And because he was there, I was conspiring with him. Very difficult to prove that he was, a snitch. The 2 DEA agents who I thought were Broward Sheriff's people, because they were so fucked up. As long as there's not 2 of you, you can't conspire with them. So you never have any of your associates when you're talking business. Because if it turns out it's a setup, they got you conspiring across the table with one of your own. And it wasn't until after I was convicted and this guy did a year that it was shown that his brother-in-law, the assistant U.S. attorney, is setting up on a deal with the CIA. He's dead.
Well, that house.
Weberman will have me
Davey.
snuffing him any minute now.
When you saw Sherry,
He actually
you
took
own
out
that
one of
house?
his partners, bringing a load of dope in.
well, then the bond didn't have anything to do with it.
He got stranded on a Bahamian
Wow.
G. Got started
This
bringing
came
salt
as a
water
big
and whack
surprise
it.
to me
Yeah, the
because I didn't know anything about it until about, let's say 4 weeks ago, 3-4 weeks ago.
That's strange.
What's that?
The bond. We're talking about the bond. He owned a house before, and the bond didn't have anything to do with him getting that
Well,
house.
the title's clouded because it's recorded, this mortgage deed again. Things don't even exist anymore, do they? Mortgage deeds, where you're holding a mortgage deed as collateral. Now you put a lien on, and you sign a promissory note.
Oh.
Now, because they don't use those things anymore, and that's the very reason they don't, because it clouds the title.
Oh, I see.
See, when you do a lease option, you're going to buy the house down the road. You never record anything because it tends to cloud the title. But some of these assholes are stupid. They run down to the courthouse and they record it, and it clouds your goddamn title. But they wanted to be first in line. Well, they would have been second or third in line anyway on a foreclosure, because it's the mortgage lender that has first call. They wouldn't have gotten shit. So it's a stupid thing to do, and it's probably not. It was never done too often. In this case, they did. They clouded your title. Now you got to show that either the bond was estreated and no action was taken, or the bond was what do they call it, dismissed.
Set aside.
Bond was set aside because now you were on an appellate bond, and your appellate bond was ROR. The same company didn't continue with you. And then what?
I think the only way you're going to do that is to file a suit, what
Clear
they call
title.
the clear title.
Yeah.
What do you know about Charles Harrelson? Nothing.
Got a son that makes a lot of money.
Yeah, I know.
Got a son that played Larry Flint,
Yeah.
a natural born killer.
Yeah.
Davies' buddy wrote the screenplay on that. Richard Rutowski wrote Natural Born Killer.
Yeah. Strange movie. He's a strange guy. Nice guy, but a strange guy. Yeah, strange movie. Definitely.
Rutowski.
Okay, you guys
He played
done?
Death and The Doors. He's the shooter on the grassy, the picket fence, and the uniform in JFK. He's one of the closest guys to Stone.
Question was, are we through?
I assume we are. I came over here to get Davy's story. Davy doesn't have one.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Apologize.
No, that's all right.
no?
See, the trick is, you got a bunch of these
Jerry,
Hey, I'm talking. My lips are moving. We get a
It's all
bunch of these
Monica's too, but
declassified
he doesn't
files.
talk.
When he's got a few weeks of nothing to do, it's like Willie and Joe up front, walking through the mud in Italy. I think I've told you this before.
Yeah.
When I get home, I'm going to get a nap and find out where the fuck we've been. We get these declassified files, and you can see what the government was doing, and who was saying this, and who was saying that, and it jogs your memory as to what was happening month by month. The HSCA did a week by week on me, what the fuck I was doing. But they left out some very important parts that shit that people didn't want to talk about. The missile crisis, the fact that I was back in Special Forces Reserve in '64 when they were putting me in the Dominican Republic in '65 on their deal with a tone and the OAS and all that shit. They want to leave a bunch of stuff out, put all the derogatory shit in there. So
Talking about Constanzo?
yeah. Juan Medina was in there too, so was a whole bunch of other people. When they came down from Washington, and they wanted a team to go into the Dominican Republic in the summer of '65.
You know, what I was trying to tell you is that Gerry led me to believe that you knew all about this thing. But
No, I said I'll let you ask him first.
All he wanted to do was just see me again.
Yeah. Like I told him,
You know,
we don't discuss it. I haven't refreshed his memory, you know. And like
obviously,
when I talked to Dempsey and Little Joe 4 years ago, I just said, "Tell me your side of the story." Yeah. Because someday somebody's going to come along and ask you this, and that. What do you remember? You don't remember shit? Good. I don't remember everybody was there. I get just little vignettes. The fact that he drove the car onto the ridge at Just Island where the garbage truck had made a hole in the bridge. The CIA guy that owned the island's father, the guy was an airline pilot, came out yelling at Daisy. Watley gave him the finger, told him to suck a dick or something. I'm going to be evicted the next day because of that shit. But when it's supposed to bring the van onto the island, it's supposed to walk out to the street and get in the van. And who's sitting in the right front seat? Wally. Now, he's the head nigger in charge, so I got to sit in the back.
What island is this?
Just Island. It's at 25th Avenue and the river.
Yeah, just off
Oh,
of
yeah.
7th Avenue.
We built the high rises there in '72.
Yeah, I know.
Strange coincidence. Angelo took 6 fucking rounds on that island.
Did we ever take that?
72 by Prio's daughter, and she killed herself.
Gerry, did we
Check the
ever,
records.
did we ever take that 4-masted scooter to that island?
No, it was down behind Sanchez's, hard behind Sanchez's around the AAA office.
Yeah, that-
at Flagler
yeah.
Street Bridge.
Okay.
With a Spanish Gallego captain on board.
The haunted
Now he
ship.
was in charge. See, we set these things up, and because we keep a low profile, we show up in our own operation, and we're fucking trespassers.
Somebody
Yeah?
else is in
We
charge.
got people giving us fucking lip, and people have taken over. We call it pulling a coup. Yeah? We're going to go on board our fucking vessel, and we got assholes who we've hired that we don't know personally, running us off. Very unorganized. But if anything went wrong, you would have played hell linking us up to it. If they ran over a fucking dolphin or something, they wouldn't find something manifest.
Manatee.
I think I'll cut at that point.